this is going to be the journey of publishing a PWA, a progressive web app, to app stores. Okay, my name is Maximiliano. I can go by Max. I know it's a long name. Fert on Twitter, fert.dev, my website. And I will take you in a journey, okay, from a PWA to app stores. So really quickly, I'm a mobile web developer. I'm from Argentina. I'm currently here in Buenos Aires. And I've been doing web development since Netscape 2.0. So I've been doing web development for almost 25 years. And I'm also a mobile developer. So I've been doing native apps since 2002. So I've been doing consulting and training all over the world for big companies, small companies. Also, you can find a lot of content of my authority at different providers like Pluralsight, O'Reilly, or LinkedIn Learning. I've been lately writing a lot in terms of books and articles on PWA and web performance. PWA is our topic today. And lately, I have published this new website, fert.dev, where you can find a lot of articles, free content, and learning experiences that I've been doing over the last few years. Okay, so I mentioned that I want you to take you in a journey. Okay, the idea is we are going from a PWA to stores. That's the idea, right? So we will need to stop in different stations in the middle. Okay, so it's not a direct, straight path, but we can get there. So let's do it. We're going to start on the PWA station. So we have a PWA, okay? So first, some of you might be thinking right now, mostly if you have a PWA, hey, Max, wait there. So why the App Store? So isn't the whole idea of a PWA to install apps without the App Store? Well, maybe you want to get out right now of the session, but wait a minute. So yeah, we want to keep from progressive web apps and from the PWA platform some features, some abilities. For example, easy deploy. So you deploy a PWA just deploying to the cloud, to the server. Okay, even you can still use FTP if you want to deploy a PWA. So we want to keep that thing. Also, single code base. Okay, that's one of the advantages of PWA, that we can actually ship apps for different platforms today: iOS, iPadOS, Android, Windows, macOS, Linux, Chrome OS, and even some others in between, such as, for example, Xbox and some kaiOS for feature phones, mostly shipped on Asia and Africa. So we still want to keep single code base, and also we still want to keep one of the most important, from my vision, features of a PWA compared with native apps is that we can actually send silent updates. So we can update the app just by updating the service worker or the resources on the server, and the app will update itself. We don't actually need to package something to the App Store. We don't need to upload a new package, and we don't need to wait for the App Store to actually check our app and approve the app. So we want to keep that, okay? And also we want to keep the idea of working with open web standards. We are here in a JavaScript conference. We actually love JavaScript and web platform. So we don't want to get into SDKs and different languages and platforms and learning different IDEs and everything to create apps for different platforms. We still want to keep here. So when I'm saying that we will go to the store, I'm not saying that they're going to lose these features, right? However, we want to take some advantages that we can have if we publish a PWA on the App Store. And by the way, this is totally optional. I'm not saying that you should publish every PWA in the App Store, but for some PWAs, for some progressive web apps, this is actually a good solution. So why? We can acquire new users. This is one of the most business queries that I get when I'm trying to promote PWAs within companies. It's like, yeah, but probably this is a way which acquire new users that are just searching in the App Store for an app for the use case that they need. So I know I have a calculator, so users are just searching calculator, and my app will appear there. Okay, that on the web there is no search for PWAs. It's just Google or Bing or DuckDuckGo or any search engine that is just searching on the web. It's not just searching PWAs specifically. So it will also simplify how users will find our app. right now, one of the problems that we have, one of the challenges that we have as PWA developers is that some users actually don't know how to install the app or don't actually understand the platform. So what is that we can actually install an app from the browser? So it looks really weird. Even on Android, for example, or on iOS, the term is actually not install, but add to the home screen, right? Probably you've seen this, add to the home screen. And that's kind of confusing if you think about that from a user's point of view. When we create a PWA and we ship that PWA in app stores, we can simplify how users will understand that installation process. It will stop business discussions. So I've been a web promoter for decades at this point. And on the PWA stuff, PWA roughly has 4 to 5 years old. The term, not the idea. So the idea of a progressive web app, so using web technologies to create offline capable installable apps, is actually older than that. And I've been doing those web apps for probably 12 years, okay, for iOS, for Symbian, rest in peace, and BlackBerry, for example. So we used to create web apps for other platforms before. But today, when I'm doing consulting all the time, so I'm having conversations with companies. When they want to start a new mobile app, sometimes I say, okay, maybe PWA is a good platform for your app, not for every app, but there are some apps, mostly the apps that are just consuming web content or web services. Those apps are just really good candidates for PWAs because it's just web content, web services. We already have a browser. We already have JavaScript, frameworks, libraries, everything to actually serve that need. But when I try to say that, there is always this business discussion that say, yeah, but you know what? I've been told that it's better to create native app, and I prefer to create a native app. Most of the time, when you have that discussion, when someone that is on the business side is telling you that they prefer a native app, most of the time, they're actually talking about the store. They're actually talking about distribution, not about the technology that you're using to develop the app. Okay, so they're not thinking on Swift or Kotlin or C. They're thinking about how you are going to distribute the app, right? So that's why going to the App Store with the PWA would stop that discussion, because from a user's point of view, it's just another app, another native app. Cool. So some other important advantage that we want to take from the store is actually adding additional features. For example, one of the most asked features right now is push notifications on iOS and iPadOS. If you're a PWA developer, you know that we don't have push notifications on iOS and iPadOS. I know that push notifications are not the best feature today. They're currently annoying on the web, but for some enterprise applications, it's actually pretty important for some specific applications. So this is one of the additional features that you can add to the PWA, for example, on Apple operating system. But there are other additional features that you can add, just as geofencing or connecting to some hardware, or things that are not currently available under the web platform umbrella. Also, sometimes you want to use some of the App Store business models. These are currently being actually debated a lot, because probably you have heard about the legal fight between Epic Games and Fortnite with Apple. But anyway, let's say you want to get on that business model, for example, to sell content, digital content or digital services on your app, and you want to use the store, even if Apple or Google are getting 30% of that. So let's say you want to do that. Well, on the web, it's actually more complicated. You need to integrate with, I don't know, PayPal or a credit card processor, but maybe you want to use the one-click App Store business model. Well, you can go to the App Store and do that. And also, you can also go to the store because you want to replace a native app. So let's say there are a lot of companies, typically small companies. I'm targeting here small companies. I'm not saying that it's not suitable for large companies, but it's specifically important for small companies. So think about a restaurant, a coffee bar. So sometimes they create a native app for the store, just for making orders or to see news or whatever. And if you think about that, it's actually a lot of resources that they were actually spending on those native apps. And most of the time, maybe they have the money to create the native apps the first time, but it's actually complicated for them to actually ship updates. So because it's a small company, they don't have infinite amount of money, but they do have a website, and maybe they have somebody within the company, internal employee, that is actually managing the website, community manager, a webmaster. Do you remember that term? But anyway, so well, they are actually updating the web, but they don't know how to update the native app. Well, now we have PWA. So if you create or convert that website to a PWA, you can replace that native app in the store with the PWA. So then there is only one source of information. That company will only update and work on one code base that will actually serve the web and even the apps that are actually in the store, because it's actually the same app. Okay, cool. So why in this case that we are replacing a native app, why a PWA can be better than the native app, or in which cases? Okay, so for example, we have immediate installation thanks to the package size. So for example, a really simple app on the Play Store or on the Google Play on the iOS App Store can have not less than 10 megabytes typically. Okay, so even if it's simple, but just a couple of images, logos, a couple of screens, well, and libraries that you add on top of that, typically it's 10 megabytes. What about the PWA that is in the store? It's typically less than 1 megabyte. So when you go to the App Store and click install, it will immediately be available in the home screen, and the user will immediately use it. It's common on the App Store when you download large native applications that you click on install, and then you see that it's installed in the app, and you say, okay, I will go back later. And maybe you never go back to that app. Okay? So also, we can still have this idea of transparent updates. That's not possible. Sometimes it's a technical restriction. Sometimes it's an App Store restriction. When you have a native app, you actually need to install updates through new versions. Okay, and those new versions should go through QA and through App Store approval process. That's not going to happen with PWAs. So we can have all our users updated up to the last minute with a PWA. On some platforms, a PWA that was downloaded and installed from the App Store can actually share session with the browser. So for example, in that case, the user is already logged in. So the user installs the app and it's already logged in because it was logged in the browser. So now we know that we actually won. I mean, you're still here in this train, so you actually want to publish a PWA to the store. So the first step is to have a PWA published and ready. This is important because if it's not ready, it's not going to work. I mean, the whole process is not going to work. That means you need a web app, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. You can use React, Angular, Vue, Vanilla.js, Next.js, whatever framework you want to use. So you need the web app manifest. At least you need to have a display standalone, minimal UI, or full screen. Those are the values that will actually make a PWA today. You need a service worker. This is the JavaScript component that is actually caching and serving at least the app shell. The app shell is the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript code, and maybe other resources that will actually render the shell of your app. Maybe not the content, but at least the app shell. In some cases, it can be also the content. So web fonts, images, videos, everything that you need to render the app will be cached and served by the service worker. For those of you that are new to PWA, think about the service worker as a web server that we are installing in user's device. And that web server will actually serve those files to the PWA once it's installed. So you need that to actually go to the store. And then you need performance. So you need to follow best practices to offer a very good user experience if you actually want to go to the store, right? If you don't have a good performance, it's not going to work. The store will reject you, or even worse, your users will reject you. And you will have 1 star, and that will be a big problem on app stores. Okay, so the first step is to have a proper published PWA on a server. It should be on a public server, right? Cool. So That was the PWA station. So we already have a PWA. Okay. The next station is to plan. We need to do a plan, okay, before actually getting into the App Store. So let's talk about the plan. So on some stores, we are going to publish something that I call a launcher, a PWA launcher. So there are a couple of app stores with some kind of official PWA support. And on those app stores, typically you're going to publish a launcher. And I will get into the launcher in the next station, so you will understand what that is later. So the stores are the Google Play Store for Android, on tablets and phones, and also for Chromebooks. Right? So some Chromebooks, most of the Chromebooks, are actually supporting Google Play Store. So the Samsung Galaxy Store, for those of you that have Android Galaxy devices, you have the Galaxy Store, and that store is actually supporting PWAs. And also the Microsoft Store on Windows 10 and Xbox. So here comes the Xbox part. So Windows 10 and Xbox are currently supporting the Microsoft Store. So these stores are actually supporting PWAs officially, okay? But there are some stores that even if you want to go with your PWA there, you will need a package. That is not a launcher. The package will typically include all the assets, okay? So this is not actually the same, but at least you might want to go there. In this case, we have the Apple App Stores, and that's the App Store for iOS and iPadOS, and also the App Store for macOS. Okay, so we have the 3 Apple App Stores where today, at least, that will need these kind of packages if you want to publish your PWA. We have the Amazon App Store. This is actually the store available for Fire TV devices and also for Fire tablets. Okay, for the Kindle Fire tablets. In those cases, I think it's Amazon Fire today, not Kindle anymore. But anyway, for Amazon tablets, you also have an app store because those tablets don't have the Play Store, even if they're Android-based. So you actually need to go to the Amazon App Store. And finally, we have the kaiOS store. The kaiOS store is for feature phones. So these devices that are not even touch, but all the apps that you have that you can install on those couple of million users is actually PWAs. So with packages, so on the last option, so for example, for the App Store on iOS, Service Worker is not in charge. Okay, so mind the gap here, because in that case, Service Worker is not in charge. What about updates? In this case, updates to the app will work as updates on native apps. You actually need to ship a new package. Okay, every time you make a change in your build. So if you're creating an app using Angular, every time you make a new build, you also need to make a new build on iOS package and upload that again. Okay, that's unfortunately for now, but that's not going to happen with the stores that are compatible with Launcher. So app stores are also not for every PWA. So if you have a PWA, you need to check if it's suitable for the store, because the PWA needs to comply with the store rules. And there are some rules that, as web developers, we might not know. Some apps will not be accepted. Okay, so it's like, okay, that app, because of the content you're serving or the service you're offering, it's never going to be accepted in apps. Okay, so that's one option. There are user interface guidelines as well that you need to match. This is mostly enforced on kaiOS, the feature phones, and also on iOS and iPadOS. So on the Google Play Store, I've never seen a rejection based on the user interface, but I've seen that on iOS and kaiOS. For example, on kaiOS, because maybe your app, the user interface is not working properly on keypad-based phones. And on iOS, because maybe you don't have a back button or something that you need based on iOS user interface guide. Also, sometimes the business model for premium content should match App Store rules. Again, the Fortnite case. So you cannot offer premium content, or you cannot charge the user with credit card or with PayPal for digital services or content within your app, even if it's a PWA. In that case, you must go with the in-app purchase APIs, so they will take that 30% cut. So if you have a website and you're charging users money from that website, and that money has to do with content of the app itself, not of the offline world. I mean, you're not buying cinema tickets or theater tickets. You're just buying content for the app itself. You must follow the App Store rules. It's only for public apps. This is interesting because I've seen this a lot. Companies, they have an app for just for their employees, for example, and they want to go to the store. Well, actually, that's not the store for. The store is only for public apps. Public apps doesn't mean that that everything should be public. Maybe you have a login, and maybe for the login you need to be someone. I know you must be a member of a club or something like that. But it's public anyway, even if it's still under a login. But you cannot be an employee of a company by your own decision. Okay, so that's why in that case it's not public. So because of the nature of a PWA, the nature means that you can update the content without sending an update to the OS. Okay, so you can update the PWA with the service worker without uploading a new package. There might be additional restrictions on PWAs. I will show you an example in a minute. On the Google Play Store, you should check the Developer Policy Center. You have all the information on what happens on Android and Chrome OS. For the App Store, you have the App Store Review Guidelines. That's for iOS, macOS, and iPadOS. For Microsoft Store for Windows 10, you can check the document Microsoft Store Policies. And this is just one example. This is one of the most visited websites in the world, and it's a PWA, YP. I'm not sure if you know that. Well, YP, it's actually YouPorn. Okay, so YouPorn, it's a PWA, but yeah, they cannot be in the store. So this is just one example of why not every PWA can actually be in the store. Okay, so be careful. Yeah, this is an extreme case. Let me show you another case on the other side. So here you have a tweet from a developer. So they were actually uploading a PWA to the store, to the Play Store, that is for children. Okay, so it's like children books or interactive books. And they were actually rejected because there is a rule saying that you cannot use for children's web content. So you cannot use a PWA for this kind of content. Why? Because there is a risk that with just a simple switch on your server, you can actually change completely the content of your app. And that might be a problem, okay, for the security and privacy of our children. So that's why there are some cases that are not treatable today, at least, for using PWA on the store. So we need to plan a couple of steps with time. With time means that if you're planning to have your PWA published in the store, next Monday, you need to start a month before, because there are a lot of steps. It's not as simple as deploying to the server. Okay, we actually need to do some steps. We need to register ourselves as a publisher on each store. Okay, sometimes you need to pay a fee. Okay, for example, on Apple, it's the typical $99. Of course, it's available in different currencies for the Google Play Store, and that's $99 is per year. On the Play Store is $20 or euros or pounds, and you pay that once only. On most of the other stores, it's actually free. But why you need to do this with time? If you are actually publishing your app as a company, or you are doing an app for a company, for a client, and that client is a company, a registered company in a country, you need to go over a process. And that process can take days or weeks. Okay, it depends on the store, because the store wants to actually guarantee that you're actually part of that company, or you have the rights to publish apps under the name of that company. So that takes time. Okay, so I have experience with clients on the iOS App Store. On the iOS App Store, you need something though, DNUNDS. So it's a number that on each country in the world, you can get. But the normal delay can be 30 days to actually get that number. If you have never received that number, that number is it's typically an organization that will check your documents, and you will see, yeah, that's Apple Inc. Okay, so that's that company. Also, sometimes you can pay a fee for getting a faster process. But anyway, it's still 1 week, the faster process. So it can take time. So you should prepare a privacy policy URL. So for most app stores today, it's mandatory to have a privacy policy and you need to provide the URL. So you need to, within your PWA or outside of your PWA, you must have that privacy policy ready. And you need to pick a package ID. A package ID is a string that represents your app within the phone, so within the device. Also, it will represent, it's a unique ID within the store. Typically, we tend to use the URL of the PWA in reverse order. So if you have mypwa.com, it will be com.mypwa. The thing is that you need to pick one. And once you pick that, you cannot change that in the future. So it will be forever. So pick the right one. And you should prepare a demo account for reviewers. In case your PWA has a login, you actually need to provide demo details, such as an account or instructions. The reviewers should actually enter the app as a user. In fact, for example, on the App Store documents, you have this before you submit section where you can see that you need to test your app for crashes and bugs. You need to ensure that the app information is complete. You need to update your contact information in case the app review needs to reach you, and you need to provide an active demo account and login information, plus any other hardware or resources that might be needed to review your app. Okay, so you need to provide everything so they can actually check your app, even if they're not a user or they don't have a hardware or they don't have what you need to use that app. Okay, so that's important. And after part of the plan is actually, after you check the documentation for every store, you need to prepare metadata. That metadata will be, for example, a large icon that is typically 1024 by 1024 in PNG. And that's typically not currently in normal PWA. So typically PWAs today are using 512 in the web manifest as the icon. So you need a larger one. By the way, you should start adding a 1024 on your web manifest because some platform will start supporting that version. You need to create a screenshot, at least 3 screenshots per platform and factor. Factor means, for example, on Android, you need to take a screenshot of a phone factor and also of a tablet factor. Okay, so you need a screenshot of some part of your app because those will be part of your store record or submission. You need to prepare a lot of text-based metadata. That's category, the name of your app, the description of your app, and that data can be localized in different languages. So you need to prepare that with time. So you can actually, the description of your app or the name of your app can be in 15 languages. So you need to prepare that metadata that today actually is not available on a PWA. Finally, you also need to prepare promotional banners that sometimes are mandatory. So you cannot upload your PWA or you cannot publish your PWA to the store if you don't provide these promotional banners. It depends on the store, the size and the format is different, but these are the banners that will appear typically when the user gets in the App Store and is getting in your entry. Okay, so the size is actually different by platform, but you need to actually probably create those assets beforehand. So now we know that we have a PWA and we started the plan, or at least we plan what we are going to do. The next step, or the next station for us, is actually launchers. We actually need to create app or PWA launchers. So let's try to understand what is a launcher. So there are 3 kinds of packages typically available for a store. We can have a native app. A native app, it's a package that contains all the assets, the binary files and the assets of your app. For example, on Android, it's an APK. On iOS, it's an IPA. Typically, we can also have hybrid apps. A hybrid app is something that you can create, for example, with Adobe, rest in peace, Adobe PhoneGap or Apache Cordova. In that case, it's also a native package. It's a box, but inside the box, you don't have binary content. You have HTML. You have web content, right? You have a web app. And now we are going to talk about PWA launchers. A PWA launcher, it's a native package. It's a native box but it's empty. We are not going to ship content within that PWA launcher. So typically we have three main components in a PWA: a web app, a service worker, and an app distribution method, for example, the web app manifest. Well, in this case, the PWA launcher is actually on that side. Okay, so it's actually going to be the wrapper, if you want, of your service worker and the web app. So a PWA launcher is a native app that just launches a PWA. It doesn't contain the PWA. Okay, so it's a launcher. It's an icon that will appear in the home screen or in the start menu or in the app launcher menu that will actually launch the PWA. We need, or inside the launcher, we are going to have the app's icon. Typically, we can take the icons from the web manifest, and sometimes, for some platforms, we need to provide other versions. It will contain the app's name. It can also be taken from the web manifest, the start URL, so the URL that we're going to launch. In this case, we can use the same from the web manifest, or we can use or provide a different argument, mostly for analytics, so we know that the user is actually using the app from the App Store. And other metadata that it depends on every platform, because every platform is different. You might need to set up other data or metadata within the PWA launcher. Remember, no resources are actually shipped with a PWA launcher. The service worker is still in charge, and it will download the assets after you open the app for the first time, and it will save those assets for later usage. Okay. On Windows, it's called an APPX launcher. That's for Windows 10. So it's currently using the old Edge runtime. Okay, so not the current Chromium Edge runtime. So there is the Chromium runtime is coming soon. So right now, if you publish PWA to the Windows Store, the Microsoft Store, it will actually be using the old Edge runtime. And it's actually a universal Windows app, a UWP. It can execute native JavaScript APIs. And for that, you can use Visual Studio to create your APPK launcher or PWA Builder. PWA Builder, it's a website, pwabuilder.com, managed by Microsoft, that will let you turn your website into an app. So it's a helper for our PWA to actually create those PWA launchers. And it will create your PWA launcher for Windows. You just enter the URL of your website, or PWA actually, and it will give you the Windows package. For example, Hulu on the Microsoft Store is using this technique. It's actually a PWA. As a user, you don't know. You install the app, and after you install the app from the store, it looks like any other app in the system. And Hulu, it's available on Windows, but it's also available on Xbox One. So let's move into Android. On Android, we need to generate an APK launcher. It can use the web view, that's the old way to do things, or a TWA. A TWA is a trusted web activity. It's a technology that we have now on Android, thanks to Chrome, but now it's not just the Chrome, that will let us use instead of a web view, that the web view is not actually the browser, it's a similar web engine, but not the browser. A TWA will use the current browser that the user has on that Android phone to render the PWA. Right now, the TWA is working on Chrome, Edge on Android, it's coming on Firefox, and as well as other browsers. So in that case, when you install a PWA from the store, even you open the PWA and it's going to be using the latest version of the browser or the current version that you have installed on your device. This is only available for public PWA. So if you have an intranet or something like that, it's not going to work. Okay, you cannot use trusted web activity for that. And you can include native code as well. If you're going to include native code, or you need to include native code, and we will talk about that on the next section, it's probably better to use the web view. Trusted web activity is kind of limited. You can use Android Studio to actually build this on your own. There is a free tool on the web known as PWA to APK. PWA Builder, the same tool that we saw before for Microsoft to create an APK launcher for Android, or Bubble Wrap. Let's talk about that for a minute. Bubble Wrap It's an open source tool from the Chrome team or from the Google team to actually ship or create a PWA launcher for Android using trusted web activity. So it has a couple of components, but through the terminal, you install Bubble Wrap or use APPX if you want, and then you execute Bubble Wrap init with the URL of your public manifest. Remember, your PWA needs to be published to this, and it will create an Android Studio project for you. So from that moment, you can actually open Android Studio if you want and continue. If you know Android Studio and Kotlin or Java, and you know what you're doing, you can continue there, or you can just build a project and set up the project from the CLI. And in this case, it will give you an APK, and that's the launcher that then at the last station, we're going to drop into the App Store. In this case, the Google Play Store. So for example, Google Maps Go in the App Store is actually using this technique. And another example I want to show you is this app, Protégete con Salud. This is the official COVID-19 app from Panama. So in Panama, the official app, it's actually a PWA. It's available on iOS, and in this case, it's available on Android, and also from the browser because it's a PWA. And on Android, they have used a Bubble Wrap to actually create the launcher to publish the launcher here. And as far as I've been told, it already saved a couple of lives. This is actually for people that is positive on COVID-19, and they install the app, and they have the red button, the big red button there, will connect directly with the emergency system in case you have any health problem. Okay, on iOS and iPadOS, up to iOS 13, that's the current version, we have a solution only for enterprise distribution. We need to create a mobile config file that is not the same WebKit as in the installation from the browser. With one configuration file, you can actually have more than one PWA launcher. So you can install a configuration file, and that will install 10 PWA icons on the home screen. For that, you're going to use the Apple Configurator free tool. On iOS 14, so that's currently in beta, Service Worker might be available on WebView. So I don't want to be 100% sure because it's only beta for now, and it can change. But right now it's working, meaning that there is a new feature known as app-bound domains that will let you do that. That means that we will be able to publish for the first time PWA launchers also for the App Store. Okay, so if this stays until stable in a couple of weeks, then we will be able to use a Service Worker within a PWA launcher for iOS as well. So that's good news. So you can check my website, fear.dev, for more details. I already have an article on that, on the beta, and I'm working on another article for the final version. Okay, so there are some stores that where we don't need to actually create the launcher automatically. For example, Microsoft had for a while a trial with Bing that is now deprecated. So if you have heard about that Microsoft will publish your PWA automatically, it's not there anymore. The Play Store creates a PWA launcher also, known as WebAPK, but it can't be used for a store. Okay, so we cannot use it. And the Galaxy Store is actually the one that has a generator if you submit a PWA. So on the Samsung Galaxy Store, they will create the launcher for you. So we don't need to create that package, okay? And also we have hybrid packages, as I mentioned before, that in this case, we need to create a package with the files inside. Okay, so with all our files inside, so no Service Worker. In this case, all resources are shipped within the package. It's not a launcher, but at least for some stores, it's the only way that we have. That's kaiOS, for example, that we need to create something known as a packaged app that will include some files in the package, and it's ready for store distribution. And for that, if you want to create this, you need to download the WebIDE free tool that is available in the kaiOS developer website. And then we have hybrids for Apple, okay, that we can use it manually with Xcode, or you can use Apache Cordova, Electron, Capacitor, so these ways that we have to actually create a hybrid with web content inside. In that case, we are not going to use the Service Worker. Okay, so it's WebView based. It's not the same browser as Safari, and it's not going to share sessions between Safari. So it's a completely different app, right? You use Xcode typically to create these solutions. Okay, so some examples of this hosted apps, it's actually for Amazon and kaiOS. They have something known as hosted app. In this case, it's a way to serve apps that can be PWAs, but only when the user is online because there is no service worker. Okay, so you're not shipping the app to the store, just the URL as a PWA, but because there is no service worker, it will work only while online. Just one example to pick one, Scandi PWA. It's on the iPhone store, and it's just a PWA using that technique. Okay, cool. So we have a PWA. We have a plan for the store, and we have the launcher. The next station, it's actually extensions. This is a small stop, short stop. This is a stop that is actually combining with the native line. Okay, so with an extension, we can extend our PWA with Android native code in Kotlin or Java, with iOS and iPadOS native code, or even macOS and Swift or Objective-C, with kaiOS APIs and Windows APIs. So we can add extensions to our PWA JavaScript code that can actually extend what can be done with the web platform. In this case, we can extend the web platform with native web APIs on the Microsoft Store. We have all the available APIs in Windows are actually available from JavaScript. And kaiOS has a suite of additional APIs that are not web standards. They were coming from Firefox OS. And those APIs will let you connect with hardware and with the platform that is not available in the browser. And we can also write native plugins, so native code for the Apple App Stores and for the Google Play Store. If you're using Trusted Web Activity, you have some limitations on what you can do. Just remember to use the P in PWA, just progressive. So progressive enhancement. So we are going to write one single code base. So the idea is that when you detect that you are within an Android Play Store app, then you use an extension that you have there. But if not, everything will work anyway. So now PWA plan launchers extension. It seems like we are getting into the last App Store station, but actually we need to go to another place now. It's enterprise. So we're going to talk quickly about an enterprise distribution. Sometimes you have an app that is not public. It's just for employees of a company. And that's an enterprise distribution. And you can deploy your PWA into employees' devices from a URL or a launcher. On iOS, we use that mobile config file that I mentioned before. Okay, you need to distribute that app on the web, like on a website, or through an email. You send that configuration file. If the user accepts the configuration file, PWA icons will appear in the home screen. To create those packages, you use this tool, Apple Configurator, where you create a web clip, one or more web clips. And in this case, it has the label, the URL, the icon, and that's all. It will just work. So you can actually deploy PWAs to enterprise users on iOS and iPadOS. Okay, so Android. On Android, you can ask a PWA launcher that a PWA launcher can be installed on any Android phone or tablet, so that's simple. But it works only with public host, so it cannot work with intranet. Okay, and there is a solution known as Managed Google Play iframe. It's a very weird name. It's a very weird name, to be honest. So it lets you push PWAs using the Enterprise Android console. So for enterprise users, you can go and deploy a new web app. You pick the title, the URL, and some data, and then your employees will actually find that PWA within the work apps. Okay, it's some kind of an internal store. And that means that now, finally, we can arrive to the last stop, App Store. The final station is approaching, so our PWA is ready for the App Store. Okay, we have everything that we need. So we go to the kaiOS App Store Services website, and we actually publish a new app, a new package app, for example. That's how it works on kaiOS. On the Samsung Galaxy Store, it's actually pretty simple. If you want to publish a PWA today, you need to send an email. So it's a kind of a manual process. You send an email with the URL to actually publish the PWA, and it will appear under web apps. On the Apple App Store, you need to go to App Store Connect after you have an account, and you publish your new app, uploading your package from Xcode. On the Amazon App Store, you have a section that will let you publish a new mobile web or Android app, okay, from the developer dashboard within Amazon. On the Google Play Store, you need to go to the Google Play console. This is a new UI for the console where you need to go over a lot of steps until you publish your APK. You need to upload the PWA launcher that is in format APK. And finally, on the Microsoft Store, you have the Microsoft Partner Center that will let you upload your APPX. That's the launcher format for the Microsoft Store. Remember that publishing can happen within hours or weeks after submission. So that's why I was saying plan this with time. Okay, so it can take some hours, like for example on the Play Store, or some weeks, and brace yourself for rejection or for making changes in your UI. Some stores will actually tell you, I don't like that screen. That screen is actually against our rules, our UI guidelines. So please go, you need to go make a change and upload a new version. And sometimes it's even weird because you are making change in your code base, in your PWA, not in the package. But anyway, you need to upload a new package. So we finally arrived to our destination. We have a PWA, and we publish that PWA to the App Store. Okay, so thank you for joining me in this journey of publishing a PWA to the App Store.